So, in a surprising move, or maybe it's not so surprising, Disney shareholders voted down a proposal to cut ties with the LGBTQ rights organization, the Human Rights Campaign, which I didn't know by name, but then I looked them up and saw like the flag with the blue background and the yellow equal sign, and I was like, oh, I know them. They were, I know them by sight now. The Disney shareholders voted down a proposal to cut ties with this organization's annual corporate equality index. Basically, exactly what it sounds like, where this organization will kind of grade different companies based off of how inclusive they are to different marginalized groups, right? I think specifically towards the queer community. But if it's named the Human Rights Campaign, you would think it would be for all human rights, but I digress. Maybe they are. I don't really know enough about them. This proposal that was put in front of the shareholders was originally submitted by right-wing think tank, the National Center for Public Policy Research, through their Free Enterprise Project initiative, which calls itself, quote, the original and premier opponent of the woke takeover of American corporate life, end quote. And in their argument for putting this proposal in front of the Disney shareholders, they said, quote, when corporations take extreme positions, sidebar of accepting people, I'm not sure what that means, they destroy shareholder value by alienating large portions of their customers and investors. This proposal provides Disney with an opportunity to move back to neutral, end quote. Again, can't necessarily speak to the business practices necessarily of like the employees and things like that. But I'm, the thing about this quote here is people who would argue against this quote, in which I'm in that camp. A lot of people would use the argument of like, no, it doesn't destroy shareholder value. My argument is, yeah, it probably does, but it's worth it, right? Like, it might be pragmatic or practical, to try to convince people actually doing the right thing will actually make you money. But more times than not, it doesn't. But you should still do it anyway, if it's something you believe, right? Disney notably has maintained a perfect score for this corporate equality index. And the FEP, right, the Free Enterprise Project, says this, quote, can only be attained by abiding by its partisan, divisive, and increasingly radical criteria, end quote. And they go on even further, saying, quote, the threat of a bad score is wielded against corporations to force them to do the political bidding of HRC and others like GLSEN, the Trevor Project, and GLAAD, which Disney also has paid partnerships with, that seek to sow gender confusion in children, encourage, I don't know why I'm reading this like I'm like an evil advisor to the king, right? Like, sow gender confusion in children, encourage irreversible surgical procedures on confused teens, effectively eliminate girls and women's sports and bathrooms, and roll back long-standing religious liberties, end quote. That's kind of a stretch, but also a lot of what they just said is just homophobic and transphobic and just backwards and ignorant. Sorry, snowflake conservatives, if you're watching. The Disney board, in response to this proposal, recommended to their shareholders that they reject the proposal, saying, quote, given the company's existing practices to assess participation and transparency efforts and the board's oversight of ESG, environmental, social, and governance reporting, workforce equity matters and human rights policies, we do not believe workforce equity matters and human rights policies. That's a weirdly structured sentence. We do not believe this proposal would provide additional value to shareholders, end quote. And the preliminary tally shows only 1% of shareholders voted in favor of the proposal. So they overwhelmingly rejected cutting ties with this group. Eric Blom, who's the VP of Corporate Citizenship at the Human Rights Campaign Foundation, said, quote, this vote gives us a clear statement of values from Disney shareholders. They know what we know, that despite all the noise, commitments to inclusion pay figurative dividends to help their literal bottom line, end quote. Again, I'm not sure if that's true or even needs to be true to do it, but if that is true, that's a bonus, right? So the reason why I'm talking about this story is because I found it surprising, especially considering Disney's relationship with the queer community over the past a couple of years, especially like the last 12 months, right? You know, because the queer community loves Disney, right? You know, I hope this isn't coming off as homophobic but the Venn diagram of people in the queer community and Disney adults, there's a big overlap, right? And you could discuss why those reasons might be, but in any case, they are very, very big supporters of the Disney media empire. And Disney understood that and began leaning into it when they realized, or at least thought it was profitable, right? So like the 2010s, marriage equality is becoming more mainstream. Eventually it becomes legal in all 50 states. But as you've seen over the past couple of years, they've really started to scale things back. Of course, the big, you know, the starting gun, right, was Florida's Don't Say Gay bill, and Disney really taking a wishy-washy stance on that when Bob Chapek was running the company. Then Bob Iger comes back and says that they have to stop making movies that have like messages, which again, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but if you've watched my channel, you know I really hate this quote by Iger because it implies that because these movies don't really have no cogent political messages. So really what he's saying is the existence of people of color or women or trans people or gay people is itself a message, and we need to scale that back, which is really insulting. And then even within like the past 12 months, like I was saying, Disney, I did a video about this. Disney toned down. I did a video about like all of these things, I think. Disney toned down any queer undertones found in Inside Out 2 with Riley and the girl on the hockey team that she seems to have a really strong infatuation with. Most recently, they cut the trans storyline from the Pixar Disney Plus show Win or Lose. They removed references to DEI, and again, as many companies are doing to kind of avoid any ire from President Trump in the White House. So that's why it was surprising to see not only them reject this proposal, at least the shareholders reject this proposal, but overwhelmingly so, 99%. Effectively everybody. So I was like, does this mark a shift back towards being more accepting of this community? And the answer is probably not. It could be Disney cynically trying to throw the queer community a bone because they know that their image is being hurt by all of these, things that they're doing in terms of rejecting the community. It could also just be completely detached from corporate directives, right? Because again, these are the shareholders. Though the board themselves did suggest, hey, we recommend you vote, you reject this proposal. But it's an interesting little bright spot in an otherwise very concerning and disappointing series of events where Disney and other corporations are kind of throwing these communities under the bus because they never really cared about them in the first place. They only embraced them because they thought it would help them make money. And now that it's not making money or even worse, losing the money, they're going to drop it like a bad habit. Wow, what an interesting story. I'm sure you have some thoughts about the topic, so comment below, let me know what you think. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe. It really, really helps people find the channel and makes me feel all warm inside. Until next time, I'm Peter Mancuso. Peace out.